So you said here in this article, you said that they're being asked to commit $2 billion over 40 years to a privately owned courthouse. Did you see where they said that they figured that this would be a cheaper option? I don't understand how this could be the cheapest of two options. It doesn't make any sense to me. And on top of that, also what I noticed in both the original lease and the lawsuit, and I believe they even quoted this in the lawsuit, where they're not even sure who's paying the taxes, meaning they don't know if the tenant is going to pay the taxes, meaning the state, which is what I assume they would be doing if it's some kind of triple net lease, or if the landlord's going to pay the taxes on the property. It's really confusing that they went and had so much time to, cook this up and put this together, yet they can't even determine who's going to pay the taxes on the property on top of everything else that's happening.
Yeah, this seems a lot like what happened last year with Applegreen. I mean, there just seems to be more and more questions when you look at it. And to your point, you're talking about taxes, but just, the obvious one right here is, which was a little different than the last time, was like the obvious political connections here. I think Applegreen last year was a foreign company that was very politically connected, but in this case, it's the spouse of a congresswoman.
Right.
In this case, it's the interim executive director. These are people that you don't have to have that much of a stretch to make the political connection. And how is it possible that, a 40-year lease is being awarded to people that are in these positions in government?
Exactly. I mean, Conan Harris won the contract, if you remember, in Roxbury on public land, and it was a 400-unit condo complex. And now you turn around and he's winning this. I said this in my video. I said, look, if he won one contract, if it was just the Roxbury deal or something like that, or even just this, good on him. Maybe he got lucky, right? But when you have this string of reoccurring evidence of, and of course I'm alleging this, when you have somebody or people that are politically connected and they're getting let's say all of these deals that are coming through, you got to think to yourself, something needs to be looked into. And on top of that, as you said, I said this too, this stinks of the Applegreen deal. This seems like the Applegreen deal. And the fact that they announced the winning bidder 2 days or 1 day prior to the 4th of July, which Wilmer Hale, the attorneys that are on the plaintiff's side here, it's really something else. It really is something else.
It's really amazing that this is happening after the Applegreen fiasco. It's one thing if this was the first time we're hearing about something like this, but it's not. I feel like we just went through this in Massachusetts. You'd think that Governor Healey's administration would have been like, wow, that was so embarrassing. Let's take some of the best practices that we're basically told that we should do. But even the Applegreen situation, I mean, no one was held accountable. The people that were orchestrating the botched contract are still in government. These people are still earning more money than I think Governor Healey earns. I mean, there was no repercussions for their behavior. And in the Applegreen situation, the taxpayers were about to lose $1 billion over that contract.
Right.
In this one, again, I think this is happening so quickly. There could be more facts learned soon, but it just seems very similar. The same type of patterns are happening. Politically connected people winning the bid. These are huge, huge, life-changing bids. 40 years, $2 billion, not a million. This is a significant amount of money. And my fear is that, the people that are going to be suffering the most are the Massachusetts taxpayers.
100%. It always falls on the taxpayers. And, when it comes to speculations of the lease and all of these other things, I think that when you hire attorneys like Wilmer Hale, you know who Wilmer Hale is. These guys are serious, right? These guys are probably charging $1,000 an hour in order to put something together. So for them to be on top of something like this, it's probably really scary if you're on the other side of one of their lawsuits, because they are such a renowned and big law firm. So I think personally, and I would like your opinion on this, I think that if the plaintiffs hired some attorney off the street or something like that, I don't think it would be as serious as it is. But when you bring in like the big guns here, that they feel as though that there's an opportunity for them to challenge this. There's an opportunity for them to show what's going on here. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it seems like it's a pretty serious challenge when they're hiring serious law firms. It should be interesting to see how this unfolds, if more information comes out, if what your gut, our gut, your audience gut is telling them is validated when information comes out. And again, I'm speculating here. I'm not an investigator. We're a watchdog organization. The Herald did a great job reporting, a lot of old-fashioned reporting there with details and facts. But if regulators, people in authority that hold government accountable, are watching today's news, you have to imagine they're looking at this and shaking their head, being like, come on, Massachusetts. You just went through this with Apple Green last year. Are you really going to do this again?
Exactly. It's
I'm not
embarrassing.
saying Leah Foley's doing this right now this morning, but man, at the same time, they must be like, Massachusetts just does not want to learn its lessons correctly. Another thing, too, the Herald story noted, and this is common knowledge. You could Google this yourself. Anyone can find this on the web pretty easy, but Congresswoman Pressley, who was a Boston city councilor, it was reported her net worth was $12,500 in the year 2018 when she was leaving the Boston City Council. 6 years later, her net worth went up to $8 million.
Yep.
Now, her annual salary is around $175,000, which is a lot of money. But I don't understand how you do that math. How do you acquire that much wealth so quickly? It seems like once you become a powerful politician, you just become rich. And this contract certainly raises eyebrows and makes you think, is this what's going on with our elected officials? Is this what's going on with people in power in Massachusetts? And ultimately, again, it's the taxpayers who are losing.
100,000%. And the fact remains here. If Ayanna Pressley wants to get up on a camera and she wants to, quote all this stuff about tenant rights and corporate landlords are evil or whatever it may be, her husband is turning into what she opposes. You know what I'm saying? It would be one thing to come forward and say, look, guys, we're getting into this, or, we should have opportunities. But she doesn't want to say something like that because it effectively goes against the narrative that she's trying to portray. But meanwhile, her husband on the back end is winning all of these contracts that is going to be coming from taxpayer money. I mean, that's even worse in that regard. So how could she say that, like I said, these investors, corporate landlords are evil and, tenants need all these rights and all of these other things on one hand, but on the other hand, she's doing the same exact thing. On top of that, you're wondering how she gets to a point where she's able to afford all of these properties. They're more than likely, and of course I'm alleging this, they're more than likely using the same exact schemes that investors use in order to buy properties. That's the only way that they could do it, whether they're leveraging Conan's consulting business, whatever it may be, or she's using the same tools and resources that she's condemning. That's why it looks so bad. I wouldn't be surprised. Do you think that this is going to make national news?
I do. There's been a lot of interest in members of Congress, people in power and government, and how they become so wealthy so quickly. And this one's a good example of a documented case of a city councilor who has modest means, who quickly becomes a millionaire. And now you got another story breaking about the financial benefit on the backs of taxpayers, and we're talking about billions, and that's a really distinguishing amount of money. It's generational wealth, obviously. I mean, this is quite a unique story, and I do think it'll make national news. And I do think Massachusetts would be smart to just pause for a second and shed some light on what's happening here. If they just ran this through like they were trying to do with Apple Green last year, a lot of people are becoming really skeptical of Massachusetts. You're going to lose a lot of faith of the general public here. The best thing they can do is slow down, become very transparent, explain their reasoning. There's a lawsuit, as you mentioned, kind of unfolding. I think that needs to play out. We saw with the Apple Green lawsuit that a lot of information came out that really kind of shed some light on what was happening behind the scenes. But the last thing I'll kind of say is, with the Apple Green contract, the Secretary of Mass DOT, Phil Eng, he really didn't impose any reforms after that happens?
Nothing.
I mean, the people that were in charge of that fiasco are still in government. Their salaries have actually increased. So I guess we ultimately shouldn't be that surprised when such an embarrassing story happens in Massachusetts and no one is held accountable. What's going to happen? It will repeat itself.
100%.
And I think that's what's happening right now.
100%. Thanks, Paul, for coming on. I'm going to stay live for a little bit. I appreciate your commentary here, and I'll see you again soon, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right, guys, that was Paul Craney from Mass Fiscal. Sorry the stream got a little bit messed up in the beginning, but he's right. You know, this falls on the taxpayers, like I said. And the fact remains, you know, it took, let's see here. I originally filmed that video probably about a week, maybe a little bit over, maybe 8 or 9 days ago today. And finally now the local news is catching up. Thank God for Tim Dunn. Mass Daily News covered this as well. New Boston Post covered this as well. So more people are starting to catch on. And this reminds me, not only does it remind me of the Apple Green and Global Partners deal, but it's more so the fact that when we started covering it, and this is all thanks to you guys, by the way. If you guys didn't share these things, if you didn't watch the videos, legacy media here more than likely would not cover this information. They just wouldn't, or they would, but it would be so boiled down, you know, it would be half-baked and all of these other things. So not all the time, but sometimes. And it effectively forces them in order to report on these things, which then in turn could cause, you know, more mainstream or national media in order to pick it up and get some more eyeballs on what's happening. The fact remains, the power should remain with us. The power structure right now in Massachusetts is completely one-sided. And the reason it's one-sided and the reason it's been this way for so long is, in my opinion, a lot of people have been fed the same stuff day by day, week by week, and year by year. And what it really takes is people to go out there and talk about these things in a pragmatic way. When you have somebody that is, you know, basically on repeat getting these big contracts, these big leases, or for instance, the Apple Green and Global Partner story, and you look at these things and you see the levels of alleged collusion that's happening on the back end of these contracts, you got to think to yourself, if they're doing this with billions of dollar contracts, what else are they doing it with? That's the whole point. It's not only linking one story to another. It's all the stuff that we don't know about that falls in between the cracks. And that's what's most concerning to me on these things. It really and truly is. But anyway, I'm going to be working on something. I might be filming later today. I'm working on another story here. So I'm going to hop off, guys. If you have any questions, let me know. I see a lot of people questioning the audit. We're working on the audit, right? Everybody's working on the audit. Shout out to Diana DeZoglio. Everybody, at least the majority of people with any levels of common decency wants the audit in Massachusetts. So anyway, guys, thank you for tuning in. I will be working on a video. I'll see if I could finish it today. Whether or not that's true, we will see. Thanks again. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.